Sweet. All right, everybody, welcome to a new episode of For the Love of Writing. Today I am here with Doug Owen. I as I said, I love your background. That is awesome. The Unholy Podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, it's great.
So as I always do it, my routine, how old were you when you started writing and what got you into it?
Oh, well, writing has kind of always been in my family. So I'll take the second question first. So, my grandfather wrote after World War II. He
Yeah,
was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force and quite an educated man. And after World War II, he returned to Portland, Oregon. And he got a job working for the Times as a investigative reporter.
yeah,
And he wrote a couple of books for the family. He's done a lot of editing for some other major publications. Um, my grandmother that he married, and she was also a reporter for the Times. So they were writers very early on. And in our family, it was kind of just known that, okay, grandpa writes, he edits books, he's very literary, always carries around with him a little pad and a pen or a pencil. And basically, writes stories. He's very, very educated, very, very, very neat. So my journey, I've tried my hand at different things and different occupations and things, but I always wanted to write, and
yeah,
I always wanted to tell my story because everybody has a story to tell,
yeah,
whether it's just, hey, I lived 80 years, as a construction worker, or hey, I was involved in secret CIA torturing of aliens in Area 51. There's always a story to be told, and everybody has that journey. And I believe it was, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, who said, no one is more qualified to write your own story than you are. So that's kind of where I'm at. And after the events that happened to me, I had just turned 30 some odd years old. And, I had a harrowing experience, one of the most harrowing hauntings ever documented in human history. I was in a house with a sustained haunting for over a year. And, I had gone to the Catholic Church for help. I had sought paranormal investigation teams. I called the police. And, after a year, I decided to take a notes, and I took notes during this ordeal. And I had a journal, and I kept documented notes. I kept in contact with the eyewitnesses, and who were there when the events were happening. And I decided that I was going to write. Now, my second wife I had married, I was with her for 17 years. She considered herself an author, but she never published anything. She always had trouble finishing, but she would spend weekends where I would take her to the coast and she would write. She would write by candlelight, she would write, in the dark, she would write all of these fiction stories. And she was rather good at writing when it came to putting a prose together. She was great. However, there was just one little problem, is that she was a serious narcissist. Her narcissistic personality would not allow her to have any other authors in the family except for her. So, 17 years I shelved this project, put it on the back burner, watched her piddle around, do what she could do. She sent half of a copy to Amazon to get published. It didn't turn out well. So, with her, I did collaborate and we wrote a couple of screenplays. We sent those off and they went nowhere. But we started writing kind of as a team because I'm a big movie buff, and I know how the dialogue flows when it comes to turning something written into film. But other than that, it was her way or the highway. So after I divorced her just a couple of years ago, I decided, this story, it should be told. I should tell this story. And, I started to write it and it flowed out of me. And I was like, wow, these details are fantastic. I contacted all of the people who were with me during these events. And they confirmed everything. Yeah, that's exactly how it happened. That's exactly as I remember it. Or they'd tweak a minor detail. But before I wrote my book, The Unholy Silence, I checked with them and then went back and checked the journal, checked the documents, checked everything. And then I began to write. And it flowed out of me and it happened very quickly. We're talking maybe 6 weeks from beginning to having, the published work out there. So, a couple of revisions here, a couple of tweaks, but that essentially was my writing journey. So, family history, writing, editing. I love antique books. I collect books. I've got tons of books. Um, and I thought, wow, I think it's maybe time for the entire world to hear my story. So, two parts to answer your question. So, I started writing this 20 years ago when the incident happened. But every time I did, there would be a door slam behind me, or cold breath, or temperature drop, or some whisper from the dark corner of the house. So I put it away and I became, you focus on paying your bills. You're worried about relationships. You're worried about your kids. You're worried about making your wife happy. What's for dinner? Do we have to eat that again? What restaurant do you want to go to? I don't know. What do you like? It becomes daily life. And it obscures everything when you're trying to focus on a particular goal. And when writing was my goal, it simply was on the back burner. And I never thought I'd become a writer. I'm a salesman by trade. You can probably tell I love to talk. So, I talk to people on a daily basis and tell stories and, get them to buy product. So I never thought that I would take the path of author, paranormal investigator, podcast host, radio host. So that's kind of the direction I took. And that's kind of what started me on the writing path to actually put it into print. And the beautiful thing about it is as we get older, you and I, you want to leave a legacy behind. And I would love to think that that's my 4 children. However, the book I've created will long outlast my life. In another 50 years, after I'm long dead and gone, somebody can go to the library and say, wow, who is this guy? This Doug O. Who the hell is Doug Owen? Wow, look at this dude. So I've kind of really taken comfort and solace in the fact that I'm leaving this world just a little better than I found it. Knowledge is power, writing is power, authorship is absolute immortality.
That was absolutely incredible. You I got to tell you, I believe so. Writers are salesmen because we're trying to sell our books. You
Absolutely.
you have a great voice for radio and podcasting, and the way you tell the story just of your own life.
Sure.
Uh, I cannot wait to dive into the. It's called The Unholy Silence.
The Unholy Silence. Yeah. Yeah.
Now I know I saw the cover to that. It says a true story about a haunting.
Yeah. An Idaho home. Yeah. Simple Idaho home. Yeah.
I can resonate with that. I wouldn't say it was a big haunting or anything. Like it wasn't, like The Conjuring or something. Um we had just bought our house, we were renovating it, and we were hearing weird noises, and we thought, it's old house, and it's over 50 years old. I think it was built in the 1950s. It's not old, but old enough. And I had a guy come in to do my floors, and I didn't tell him anything about it. So he starts calling and texting me, and it goes, "Hey, are you home or like?" And I'm like, "No." And I get back to the house to see the job he's done on my floors, and I didn't have a basement door at the time because we
Okay.
had, we had just moved in. There was no basement door, and I noticed a bunch of stuff in front of the basement door blocking it,
Hmm.
like like the parts of the subfloor. he had stacked up against that door that he hadn't used yet. And I said to him, "What's that about?" He goes, "Something's in your basement." And he's like, "It's creeped me out." And then I had an electrician come, and he said the rocking chair in what was going to be our master bedroom. He said he heard something moving on the first floor, and he said he went down, and he said that chair was rocking back and forth by itself. And I looked up the history of the house. An old woman died in the basement.
Okay. There you go.
I believe falling down the steps.
Oh,
When we renovated our basement and painted it, we took before and afters of the steps, like just of where we had painted, and we saw this white ring with what you could not mistake for. It was a face.
okay.
You could see a nose, you could see a mouth, and it was I don't know, it was something else. And once we renovated the whole house and you know got it in good shape, the we noticed that we had this wall in our basement, and we were like, if we knock that one wall down, we'll have a completely open basement, and it'll look a lot bigger. So we found out, there was no issues if we knocked that wall down. So we did, and right after knocking that wall down, all the feelings from feeling like you were being watched, all of it went away.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it was like that wall being up had something to do with it. And
Nice.
that's one of the reasons why I was like, I gotta get a hold of him. I was like, it's a true story. And I was like, second I saw that, I was like, oh wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's that's even, I don't know, that's, to me, that's like nonfiction. Because
It is nonfiction. And I do classify myself as a nonfiction author because not only do I have photographs, I've got eyewitness accounts, paranormal investigative team that came in and experienced this. Whatever was in my house, it did not give a shit who saw it. On command, it would perform like
wow,
a circus act. And well, let me tell you just one of the stories here. So, you know, I moved into this house because we were the victims of a real estate scandal. The lender who was going to help us purchase the house that we were actually living in bought it out from under us. And in Idaho, a landlord can raise the rent any amount they want to as long as they give you 30 days notice. So the first month, after he said, "Hey, I'll charge you guys $200 a month. I'll get your credit cleaned up. We'll go ahead and have you buy the house." The first month he sent us a letter. The rent increased $3,000, right? The second month he increased it to 6 and exponentially. So I had to file bankruptcy and I was frustrated. So I went to the Catholic Church. They helped me get into this home. And it seemed to be an ordinary home. It seemed like we could breathe. And, I was and I wasn't a Catholic when I went to them. I had no idea, not very religious, didn't have any real paranormal experiences. But, I went to the church, talked to them. They connected me with a gentleman who had a home, and it was a lease to own. So, I didn't really know about the history of the house at the time. And one of the examples of something that happened. So I don't know if you're religious, Catholic, or whatever, but Mass lasts about 1 hour.
yeah,
And it's kind of like the fast food of religion. You go in, you listen to the homily, you sing a song, you take communion, you're out of there. Hour and 15 minutes tops.
yeah,
So at 9:45 in the morning, we go to Mass. Myself, my wife, my 2 young daughters. We leave the house Sunday morning in Nampa, Idaho. It's silent. It's everybody's at church, right? So we go there, we get out. It's about 10:30, 10:45 when I start to pull up to the house. And my neighbor is out mowing his lawn, as he always does. My neighbor and I had a competition to see whose yard could be the greenest this year. It's kind of funny. So he was out spraying when I left. He was mowing when I returned, and his yard was huge. I mean, we're talking maybe probably 3/4 of an acre in size, just lawn. like
Oh,
just lawn, nothing on it, just turf. So I took that as a challenge. And I pulled up to the house and I noticed my front door was open. I was like, "Oh, did you leave?" Look at my wife. Did you leave the door open? No. We pull up to the house. I notice my garage door is open. As I'm turning into the driveway, I look closer and I see that all of the doors and the windows are open. Every single one of them. Even the downstairs window well egresses are open.
oh, wow.
I say, "John, John." He comes over. "Hey, what's up? Did did you do? Are you fucking with me? Did you do this?" "No, no, nobody's been here." I said, "Did you see anything? Did my dog, my Rottweiler, I had a Rottweiler at the time in the back. Great dog, not vicious, but protective." I was like, "Well, he didn't run away. The back door is open. I can stand in the street, look through my garage into the backyard. He's standing there looking at me like I've got three heads, right?" And I said, "Well, nobody can. You didn't see anybody?" He said, "No, nobody's been up and down the street." He said, "I've been driving my mower." He said, "I haven't even seen a car pass by." He says, "I saw you guys leave for church, but that was it." I said, "Okay." So I told my family to stay in the car. So I called the police, and two Canyon County sheriff's deputies show up. They go into the house. They come back about 5, 6 minutes later. They say, "Well, Mr. Owen, the good news is that there is nobody in your house." Okay, that's great, perfect. And they look at each other. I said, "What?" They said, "Well, we've got to tell you that your stereo in your house was turned on full blast and it was turned to static noise." I said, "Okay, that's kind of strange." They're like, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, what else?" They said, "Well, we've got to tell you here, that every mirror in your house is shattered." I said, What? I was only gone for an hour. What?" He said, "Yeah, every mirror in your house is shattered." So they said, "Whoever did this isn't afraid to escalate. There's no signs of forced entry. There's no scratches on your door from a lock pick. There doesn't seem to be anything else going on." And they kind of look at each other and kind of have this weird look between them. They said, "So here's your report number. If anything else happens, give us a call. Do you have any enemies?" I said, "No, not that I know of. And okay, well, contact us if something else happens." So they leave. So I go in the house and I pick up the glass and we're cleaning up and we're just doing our normal thing. But I started to check, and it wasn't just the mirrors on the wall, it was the makeup compact mirrors, even the ones I had given to the kids to play makeup, that were
Oh,
empty from.
wow.
It was the dental mirrors tucked into the bathroom drawer. It was the forgotten shaving mirror thrown into a leather travel case, thrown behind the toilet paper under the bathroom sink. Every mirror was shattered in that 1 hour we were at church. So that's just one of the incidents that happened. And keep in mind that I lived there for a year because we couldn't leave. We couldn't go anywhere. We were financially destitute from the real estate scandal. We were emotionally exhausted. We were spiritually bankrupt at that point. And I had the house blessed 3 times in that year I was there. And it made it worse. So much worse. So, it's rather interesting. Something that happens like this, you think, man, if I didn't have witnesses and if I didn't document in writing in my own hand, and I didn't use my computer, I used a journal. If I didn't write this stuff down to write into a book later, I would have thought I just needed more Prozac. I would have thought, man, I got to go on some serious psychedelic drugs because this shit just doesn't happen. You start to question your sanity. And I look back on it after 17 years of not writing about it, not creating a book, not really thinking about it, just straight ahead focused on, okay, I need 2 Lamborghinis, one mansion, a great wife, perfect kids, and like $50 million in the bank. These are what everybody dreams. These are our dreams, right? You
Yeah.
want to quit your job at the sanitation department, right? You want to go on, to be able to do what you love. So
Was,
you focus
was
on that.
that coincidental, or do you know I'm a garbage man?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know. No, I know.
Oh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
You've seen the episode. You've seen other episodes.
I did. I did.
Nice.
I did. I watched those. Yeah. I did my research because, you know, not that it is, but you have to understand is I get 500 emails every week at
Yeah.
least from Oprah Winfrey, you know, or
Oh yeah.
you know, Stephen King. You know, I get all of these, you know, even publishing houses where they've gotten clever and they've just switched the I and the L around and it looks like a legitimate publishing company.
Yep.
These people will buy .coms out there and they look legit. So no, before I wanted to sit down with you, I just wanted to make sure because you know, you've had them, I've had them, we've had bad interviews.
Oh yeah.
I
Tons.
had a guy that you know, was obviously, you know, I didn't know this, but you know, I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. This is terrible. Shame on me. But I call them dynamites. And they're not fully disabled, but they're not quite on all thrusters. And you know the
Yeah.
type. And so they're not aware of what they're saying just doesn't make sense. So the one guy I had asked him, he said, you know, I experienced Bigfoot in the forest. Okay, tell me about the experience. Oh, I got a lot to tell you. Okay, let's talk about it. What happened? Well, I was in the forest and you know, I heard this knock on the tree. Okay. Yeah. And you believe that that's Bigfoot. Well, why wouldn't it be? Okay, thank you for the interview. You know, I mean, you
Oh
know,
yeah. Yep.
I was like, seriously, this is where we're going, guy. You want to be interviewed for the show, and this is your story anyway. So yeah, long story short, yeah, I absolutely just wanted to, you know, just make sure that you know, you're on the level, or you know, I wasn't walking into some type of a you know, orgy, you know, something like
Oh
that.
no. No. No, you're good. I
But
will
yeah, yeah,
constantly have to look out for stuff like that.
yeah,
I just the other day I got a thing from Dan Brown saying he read
I
one of
had,
my novels and wants to
yep,
sign. It's like,
I had that too. I had that. Yeah, I had the Dan Brown thing, and I had the. It's just it was insane. Even Michael Crichton came back from the dead, you know, to
yep,
talk. It's like, man, you guys are just ridiculous. But no, you know, but that is the dream. Quit the sanitation department, get your castle, have enough money to live, you know, have this great freaking theater room in your house, have
yep,
guests over, you know, become friends with celebrities, you know, do all this stuff. Put your kids through the best kind of college, $1 million for each of them in a trust fund, and you can rest easy. Your job is done. And as we're focused on that, writing, authorship, documentation becomes kind of a backseat. And we focus on survival so much that we kind of waylay our dreams. But there's only one way, in my opinion, to do it, and that is laser hyper focus. Because if this reality is actually our reality, and I'm not saying that it is, Mandela effects aside and all that weird shit, if this is our reality, then our focus determines that. And if we're focused enough, and if we are dedicated enough, there's no reason we can't have what we want. They just have to figure out the secret code to get it. And that might be okay. I got to put in 6 days a week on a podcast. I've got to send out 50 million inquiries to turn my book into a movie. By the way, that's the next goal. So, you know, whatever it is that we're focused on, it's simply getting over the hurdle and making connections. And I think that is why, you know, it's such a therapeutic exercise for me to write, for me to document. And, you know, I've done construction work, you know, I've done, you know, all kinds of stuff, sales stuff, warehouse work. I've done all types of things. But I never, ever, 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 ever considered and thought that I would be an author. I never did. It was something that was just out of reach. You know, it was like becoming an astronaut or, you know, befriending, you know, I don't know, you know, Warren Buffett and being left all these bags of money in his will. It was something that was impossible until I sat down and I'm like, wow, that's really good, man. I put that phrase together. That's pretty fantastic, you know, and it read well and it reads well. It's, you know, not the longest book in the world, but I do have two new books coming out before Christmas time. So there's going to be Beyond the Unholy, which is a continuation because I wouldn't use the word plagued, but at least once a week, I have a paranormal experience in my house. And it's not to the level that it was, but something bizarre will happen. From my bedroom where nobody is, there'll be three loud knocks on the door. Or this is a great story. So about 3 weeks ago, we came home from my girlfriend's parents' house. And I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke weed. I don't do any of that stuff, right?
Me neither.
Caffeine and
Yep.
a cigarette. Yeah, that's my thing. I got to stay up all the time. I got to be sharp. So I like my espresso ground almost to the consistency of baby powder, right? My girlfriend calls me her little hurricane because when I make coffee, there are powder all over the countertop. There's water splashes, all that stuff. So we come home and, I'm making evening coffee and I see out the corner of my eye this little black thing. I think I just got a ground in my eye because it's everywhere. It's almost airborne coffee. I'm like, oh, I got a piece of coffee stuck in my eye. And she says, well, I'll turn on the light. And she turns on the light, and about 3 feet away from me on the counter, hovering, is this black, wispy ball. And it's just for a second. And as soon as I turn my head, it shoots diagonally in a straight line for the ceiling and disappears. And I blink and I'm like, did you see that? She's like, yeah. It looked like a giant moth or something. It was all wispy. I said, well, moths don't hover above the counter, and they sure as hell don't go in a diagonal. And it was about the size of a golf ball. And it had with it this black aura around it. Now, and she says, man, the one time we needed to have cameras on, this was it to capture these things. So in my next book, I'll document the day-to-day occurrences that happen. Bobby pins appear in my shower floor. Even though my girlfriend doesn't live here, she doesn't use bobby pins. Before I even got together with her, when I just lived alone, I found 4 bobby pins in a star-like cross pattern in the shower floor. And I was like, what the fuck? I've been divorced for a year. Nobody's been here. I take a shower all the time. This should not be here. So then I started seeing bobby pins in various locations, at friends' houses. On a table they wiped down and was cleaned, a bobby pin appear. And these are 70-year-old people. They don't use bobby pins. And Reno, checking into the Nugget, right on the counter, bobby pins. So I'm going to impart this story to you because here's what's been happening. I did an interview with Carol Hughes. She has a podcast called The Grave Talks. And I told her this story off the air. I mentioned it. And she messaged me a couple weeks later, said, okay, here's your link to the show. This is how it's going to be. It's going to be broadcast here. Great. She says, by the way, I've got to tell you, after you told me the story of your bobby pins, I've started seeing them pop up everywhere. And she says, I don't use bobby pins. So now I have passed this on to you. If you happen to see bobby pins in bizarre places, let me know, because we don't know how this transfers. Maybe just telling the story is enough.
Bobby pins.
Bobby pins, hairpins. Yeah.
A whole lot of it.
Yeah. So that's book 1. Book 2 is going to be The Unholy Protocol. And that book is going to be more of a field guide for paranormal investigators. What to do, what not to do, how to establish fake paranormal investigators who, yeah, for $59.95, I can cleanse your house, brother. I can take that spirit and get rid of it. And if you give me $100 right now, I can guarantee that some bitch never come back. No, that's not how it works. So if people are charging exorbitant amounts of money for an investigation, they're a fraud. If they guarantee results, they're a fraud. And so many people out there have started the whole paranormal investigation, ghost hunting. Now, I like to make a distinction. I consider myself author and paranormal investigator. I don't chase ghosts. I don't have to. They readily come to me all the time. I seek the truth and I write about the truth. So I'm not out there, oh, I got to see this ghost. Oh, it scratched me, or hey, that ghost grabbed my genitals, or, any of that stuff, right? I'm not out there doing that in the dark. I mean, I'll investigate a paranormal place like the Idaho Pen, but I'll go with an established, serious professional group. I won't go with just people who are seeking likes or thrills on social media. So when I am going to publish this next book, it's really just kind of a hey, don't mess with this stuff. Don't do this. You don't go in flinging holy water and saying the verses you saw in the Exorcist movie. It doesn't work like that. You know, if somebody is possessed, check mental records, medication, alcoholism, check all of these things before you start flinging holy water and, screaming words in Latin from the Bible. So it's kind of a field guide, just kind of an incident, and it's going to categorize what we know scientifically as entities. You've got entities, poltergeists, demons. You've got, mimics. You have all types of things from all different cultures in the world. Every culture has their own version of a demon, and whatever you call it. But there are different ways to deal with these things. A poltergeist is a noisy entity, right? You have the reoccurring haunting, or they call it a residual haunting, like Memorex, where the spirit walks down the hall the same way every day and just continues that loop. But then you have things that are intelligent, and we just don't know what they are. Is it ghosts like we think, spirits of people who have died? Is it black hole energy? Is it something they created in Sweden at the CERN particle accelerator? Are we circling a black hole? Are these things just other versions of us from an asshole dimension that like to cause trouble? We just don't know what they are. And our current level of scientific technology exploration tools just doesn't allow us to see what they are. So we label them spirit, demon, ghost, entity, skinwalker, all of these things. And we still don't know where they come from, what their purpose is, what their goal is, and why they're here. The best we can do is document, study, research, gather, and collaborate with other paranormal investigators. And then I write my book, taking all the accumulated knowledge of the world and putting it into a field guide that hopefully will help people discern what they're dealing with on the fly. And it's never been done. There hasn't been a, paranormal field guide ever written. So I will be the first to write a practical field guide to whatever.
Well, two things. It's probably just irony, but my daughter uses bobby pins, and they are laying all over my house.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, so maybe it's not a thing for you, but
Yeah.
if so, I mean, it would be impossible to discern. But I'm not even sure what the bobby pins are all about. And obviously something is trying to communicate in some way or something. I'm not sure, but as I say, there are, and I don't even know what they are, but they're not the level that I experienced before. The entities, and I use plural, they were nasty, and they were, I would say, malevolent. I would classify them as evil. And they worked on it for a year to break me of my faith, to get me to leave the Catholic Church. And, eventually I stepped off the battlefield because I was young. I was, young and arrogant. And I thought, well, I'm the man of the house. I'm the father of my kids, the husband to my wife. I can deal with anything coming up here. After all, I am a newly baptized Catholic, right? What could go wrong? I've got the Lord on my side. Yeah, that made it worse. So as I'm flinging holy water like a gunslinger from an old Western, left and right, saying the Lord's prayers, everything just escalated. and it got so much worse and so much more bizarre and so much more terrifying. But yeah, 1 year in the house, documented thoroughly. I decided it was time to actually write. And as I said before, getting back to the therapeutic side of writing, it's interesting because it allows you to focus. And in my case, it allows me to remember details like, oh, yeah, that happened. And as I write these things, even now, as I write the follow up to my original book, I'm like, oh, damn, I should have put that in the book. I forgot about that. I'll write it down again. Because when I documented these things, my journal entries were not complete. They were usually scrawled out immediately after the incident happened, always believing I can read my own handwriting later, which isn't the case, right? I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? So, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I remember that. So it's part memory, part documentation, part note taking. And, that is kind of how I relax. I don't do video games. I'm not, out there, toking on the bong or, taking shots to unwind and relax. It's this studio, this area. It's my quiet place. And, you know, I might put on music. I might listen to an old song and then I just write and I write it out and I bang it out and I check the chapter. I'm like, oh, damn, who's the author here? I misspelled every word. Okay, well, let's edit it later. And there's a lot of trial and error. Does this make sense? Does that make sense? So a lot of proofreading, but for me, fixing a incomplete or a incoherent manuscript or a book script is therapeutic because it's solving a puzzle. It's taking something that I can actually control. I can't control politics. I can't control, foreign affairs, wars, greed. I can't control crime. I can control my book, my writing, and I can fix it and make it as perfect as I can. So it's very satisfying for me as an author to write and actually fix it to the point where, okay, that alliteration works just perfectly and it goes together just fine.
You and I have so much in common when it comes to I don't drink. I don't smoke. I smoke cigarettes, but I'm trying to quit those.
Same
But
here. I hear that, brother. But you know what? I'm
yeah,
right there with you. Yep.
oh yeah,
So let's
and
do it one more. So let's check it out. So I'll say it first, but I do the American Spirit Blacks. What's your brand?
oh, I smoke Senecas.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I used to. You said you smoked the which ones?
American Spirit. American Spirit Black. Yeah, the little
Oh,
black
I
pack.
wish. Those
Yeah.
are where I live in upstate New York. Those ones are like $17 a pack.
Woof, dude, we could make some serious money. I tell you, it's only $120 a carton. You get 9 packs. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, man, I should ship those to you at the lower rate and start
seriously.
distributing. Of course, the ATF would probably have a problem with interstate trafficking of
Yeah.
tobacco products.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
get my buddy, he gets me Senecas. It's weird. I don't actually know how much they are in a carton because my buddy, he goes to the reservation to get them, and he charges me $3 for a pack of cigarettes, and
Nice.
I normally get 3 packs, and 3 packs lasts me about 7 days.
Okay, good for you. Good for you. Well, I got to tell you, as an author, I burn through them.
Yep.
Every time my
Oh,
computer stops,
when I write, I
yeah,
could chain smoke them the whole time.
exactly. 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 And also one of the great things, I love Stephen King. I love Edgar Allan Poe. I love Clive Barker. And it's interesting that one of my favorite books, and it's not even super popular, but it's The Dark Half with Stephen King. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's about an
I
author.
haven't read it, but I've seen the movie.
Yeah, the movie is almost exactly like the book. It's actually one of the closest renditions ever. They obviously don't show it, but the description of razor blade, killing the one guy, and slitting his scrotum. I mean, that's not in the movie, obviously, but um, no, I thought it was interesting because, as you know, they used the Barrel Black Beauty pencils to write, and then he used the old typewriter and just the nostalgia of that. Now, I did inherit two antique L.C. Smith typewriters from my grandfather. And I didn't get the one that he carried in the field because in World War II, and he wasn't a lieutenant colonel at that time, but he had a portable typewriter so he could report the news on the front lines.
Oh wow.
And this thing was the size of a freaking suitcase, just a small suitcase, but it had to have weighed 50 pounds, like a 5-gallon bucket of paint heavy. And, that was their portable typewriters back in 1943, and it was incredible. So I guess his writing, even as a younger boy, doing that. But my grandfather and his family came from Nebraska in a covered wagon to Oregon. Now, they were married for 72 years. They died in their 90s. They were married when she was 14 back in 1896, right? So I got to meet them when they were extremely old. About 1984, they were damn near 100 years old before they passed. But their son, my grandfather, he he seemed to write even before the war was over. He didn't just leave the war and begin writing. Apparently, he reported for um, what is that? Stars and Stripes. I don't know if that's accurate. I'll have to look at the fact of that and see. But whatever the military reporting people were, it was military issue portable typewriter, and I did lift it one time. And after he passed away, I'm not sure who got it, but I got two typewriters that are just massive and just super huge and heavy. So that decorates my house out in the foyer there. I've got that, and my grandfather's edited books. He helped edit um, Norjack, a book called The Norjack, on the trail of DB Cooper, who, as you may know, parachuted out of a plane with, I think it was like $60,000 back in the day, and they never found him over Oregon, Washington area there. So, his entire adult life, he kind of had the whole investigative, process of trying to find DB Cooper. And the authors of these books about DB Cooper, they came to him to edit them. And not just edit, but also add additional information, because it became a pet project of his that he was, always on the lookout for DB Cooper. And it was rather interesting. But I guess he wrote from an early age. So maybe it's in the DNA. Maybe it's passed down in the blood. Maybe it's just a 3-year-old kid seeing my grandfather write that later I store in my memory to inspire me. Maybe it's my mom telling me all these years, oh, Grandpa wrote a new book. Here it is for the family, and put it out there. Maybe it's those things. Maybe it's, getting books for Christmas from my aunt, who's a school teacher. I really can't put a finger on it, but being an author was just something, as I said, it was almost unattainable, but it's therapeutic. I enjoy it. And as I said, there's a couple of ways to immortalize yourself, but nothing better than, going to the Nampa Public Library and seeing my book is already checked out and there's a 6-week backlog, so it's kind of a great feeling. Yeah, absolutely.
When did you publish the Unholy Silence?
So the Unholy Silence was published in 2025. So it's been almost a year since I published it. Wow. And yeah, so it's been about a year. And from there it spawned the broadcast, the podcast, and 2 new books that are going to be coming out, and a plethora of interviews and things like that. I have a television show coming up. I was interviewed by a podcast that's having their own Paraflix television show beyond the normal radio show. So I'm their first guest. They were very excited to have me as their first. and it's going to be coming out here in a little bit. But no, I've got the cover of Ghost Buzz magazine for May. I was on the cover of that, plus the featured article. Also, I have Ice Spook magazine coming up in June here. I'll be on the cover and also the featured article. And then Paranormal Underground magazine. They are doing a piece on me as their, again, cover, and the main feature article in there too. So
Wow.
yeah, so I'm still doing not just podcast, broadcast, and radio shows, but also the written word, like you say, the love of writing. People love to write. People love to tell this story, and even though we can record this, people will listen, people will watch. But if you write it down, if you transcript it, generations from now, even if this technology becomes obsolete and the records are destroyed, or the hard drive crashes, or the cloud seems to fail, right? There's always going to be a physical copy that you can probably find somewhere in the world. And ancient tomes have survived thousands of years. The oldest written manuscript, I believe, is Beowulf. I think that is the oldest written story in the world. I might be wrong, but that's like, back in the times when, the Christ Jesus was a brand new deity, and is
Yeah.
mentioned, I think they mentioned that, hey, we've got this problem with this thing over here. Should we pray to the new Roman god, the Christ Jesus? Nah, just sacrifice a couple goats. We'll be okay. So it's interesting to see how it precedes even the birth of Jesus Christ. So, the written word, so important. And it's totally underestimated. And I think that if you have and everybody can write, because most everybody can speak, and maybe not everybody is as fluent or elegant or eloquent in speaking, but everybody has their own story to tell. And as we go along life, the urgency to get that story out, I think, becomes stronger.
Oh, definitely. I gotta ask, because you got a lot going on. How old are you?
I am 51 years old. Turned
Okay.
50. Yeah, 51 years old. And I didn't actually publish this book until I was 50 years old. So, I mean, I'd had various versions of it on my computer, different titles. I think the first title that I was working on was "What Was That Noise?" That was going to be the title of it. And then I was like, okay, so I went to the Catholic Church, no help. A lot of these things happened in silence. And you think that, you see on The Conjuring, the doors burst open, they slam, there's screech. A lot of the paranormal things that happened were silent. And I've got one more story for you if you want to hear this.
Absolutely.
So we have issues, and I'll let you read the book. I won't spoil it, but there's issues every day. And it becomes a nuisance, just a problem. My daughter witnessed, boy crawl out from under her bed, vomit, and then disappear several nights a week. I would be called to her bedroom. She'd say there's a man in her closet. I'd open the door and nobody was there, but her clothes would be swinging like a ship at sea. Her window would not stay closed. Her window. Now, it's up high enough to about 12 feet from the ground level. Not quite a second story, but with the foundation, the basement, the steps up into the house, it was high enough that a grown man could not stand there and peer into her window, right? So her window kept opening. And I took sheetrock screws, the big, long 5-inch bastards, and I drilled it from the sill into the sash, or sash into the sill, and stuck them in there. So we go to church on Wednesdays and Sundays, right? I mean, I think every religion does that. You got Wednesday church, middle of the week, right? So I go there and I talk to a deacon, and I say, look, this is, we're 4 months in the house now. This is happening. This is happening. Is that, well, did you call the police? Well, yes. Matter of fact, I did call the police once, but that's not what I'm talking about. He says, well, Do you have a weapon? I said, yeah, I've got a shotgun. I'm 250 pounds and I've got a Rottweiler. I'm not afraid of that. That's not what I'm saying. He says, well, your house has been blessed 3 times. Yes, yes, it has. He looks at me dead in the eyes. He says, well, no evil can exist where God's love is. You know what? Fuck it. I'm embarrassed. Forget I said it. I'm out of here. You know what? Screw it. Don't even say anything. And I walked away upset. I go home. And I had put the sheetrock screws into the window before we left. And I
Yeah.
swung by this little store called O'Reilly's or Riley's Catholic store on the way home. And they have the medals, medallions, rosaries, crucifixes, all these things. So I got one of those little ceramic statues. You've seen them, little Jesus kneeling in the garden with the cross. Anyway, so I said, well, here's your Jesus statue. I said, I just flung holy water all over the place. I said, put this on the windowsill. Your window should stay shut. So we go in the kitchen to get her a drink before I tuck her in to go to bed. I put my other daughter down, who's younger by 4 years. I put her to bed first. So we're in the kitchen and we're probably just barely 20 feet away, maybe less. And I say, well, okay, go ahead and go to sleep, and we'll deal with this later. I'm gonna get a drink of water. I'll be in to tuck you in. So she goes in her room and screams, and I burst in there. 3 steps, I'm in the doorway. Right, it's not very far, and my daughter is huddled in the corner, shaking. And we look at the window. The window is open. The Jesus statue is crushed into powder.
Oh, wow.
And the 5 or 6 sheetrock screws were sticking out of the top of the sill with chunks of wood still attached to it. And this happened 15 feet away from us in complete silence. There was no noise, none whatsoever. So I put a steel bar into the frame and it stayed shut from that point on. Whatever it was didn't bend it. But a lot of the incidents that happened in that silent barrier. And I don't understand it. I don't know what it is. I still, continue to investigate these things and write about it. But that's kind of why the book is The Unholy Silence. The silence of the church helping me. The silence of family, the silence of friends. Everybody was silent. And, when you're haunted, there's a certain shame that comes with it. The world doesn't know how to treat the differently abled. If you're depressed, you hide it. If you're disabled, you try to minimize it and fake the best you can. And if you're haunted, well, you better damn well keep that to yourself, because there's 2 possibilities. You're insane or you're damned. So you keep it quiet and you don't talk about it and you don't discuss it in polite society, or you'll become a circus attraction. And most people will just say, well, I don't believe in ghosts. Okay, great. They don't need you to believe in them to exist. They simply do. And so that part is how I got the title, The Unholy Silence.
Nice. I'm telling you, I could sit here for hours and listen to you talk. I got to listen to the Unholy podcast.
Yeah, the Unholy podcast is great. And then I do a live radio call-in show back to back on the Unexplained Radio Network. So yeah, I do that and I hear people's stories and we discuss the paranormal, supernatural. But yeah, each week on the Unholy podcast, I'll interview a paranormal investigator and hear their stories and hear their tales and talk about their experiences as a better hope to understand what it is we're dealing with, because we still don't know. You can't go to an encyclopedia or a medical book and open it up. Okay, what is this? Okay, demon, origin, hell, or this level, is attracted to sugar, likes to torment people. You can't find that because we don't know what these are. We don't know how they got here. We have theories, but we really just don't know what we're dealing with. And there's no scientific classification like a bird chart. It's a finch. You know it's a robin, you
Yeah.
know it's a crow. You can't go to any book in the library and say, okay, what the fuck is this thing bothering me? Why is my meatloaf, splattered all over my kitchen? How come all of my beers are open in my fridge, right? There just isn't any of that there. So that's kind of partially why I'm writing the Unholy Protocol, a field guide that will maybe help identify with the knowledge that we've accumulated. And to be fair, it is limited. And, technology is not always dependable. But with enough people experiencing the same thing, we have to be able to kind of say, okay, well, this is common. This is what happens. This is how this thing behaves. And from there, we can come up with a classification, maybe. So that's my goal. That's my goal with this book and writing.
Oh, I love it. I gotta tell you, you might have I've had about, I think, because I've only been doing this for a few months.
Okay.
I think it's about little over 6 months I've been doing it. I've had about 20 or so authors on, and you are probably one of the, I'd say, top 5 right now for explaining. You're very good at it, to where I normally talk more
Yeah.
during the episodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've just been listening. You're very good at explaining things, and I can't wait to see how you do it in written form.
No, absolutely. And I write like I talk, almost like a William Shatner dramatic pause. There's a knock at the door. You know how he does the whole thing.
Yeah,
So I kind of write
yeah,
like that. And then when I write, I take a pause because, and then I start with because, and then I over explain it. It's kind of a thing. And the book is a memoir. It really is my memoir. And it's read in the first person, me explaining this is what happened. Of course, there is dialogue, there is, action, there is things that happen, action sequences, but a lot of it is retrospective as well. So there is, in between the chapters, there is a reflective, half chapter where, I will talk about, okay, in retrospect, this is what we were looking at, this is what we're dealing with. But yeah, the way I write is essentially the way I speak. So I just speak and write it onto the paper in my head. That's the way, I guess that's the way my brain thinks too. So if I think about it, but yeah, so it's rather interesting the way it goes. But yeah, it's a great read. It's fantastic. I'll send you a digital copy of it as soon as we're off the phone here. Do you have like Messenger? Because I notice I can't
yeah.
like message you on Facebook. I can just follow
Yeah?
you.
Oh,
Yeah, no. So it's one of those things where I think I can just, well, you know what? I've got your email. I've got no worries. I'll just email you a copy. Simple as
okay,
that.
good. Sweet. Thank
Simple as
you.
that. Absolutely. So you can enjoy it, and you can go through it. It's like I said, it's a quick read, but everything in there is absolutely true. And there are pictures. There are pictures of things and
Oh,
nasty things that are there that some of the things weren't discovered for years later. In fact, the picture of the entity thing behind my daughter, she didn't discover that until she was in college, just like 5 or 6 years ago. And this thing took place 20 years ago. So in college, she was going through some old pictures. She's like, Dad, what the fuck is that? We didn't have any pets. There was nothing. We had the Rottweiler in the backyard, but that's not the Rottweiler, and he's not in the house. So what is that? I was like, I have no idea what that is.
I don't believe this. If there's
So
pictures of stuff.
there are pictures, yeah. So
Oh
um
man.
yeah, and my daughter, is unfortunately targeted by these entities or this entity. And everything in there is documented. Nothing ever happened really necessarily when I was alone. It was always with somebody else. So I always had a witness to all of these incidents that happened. I was never alone in the bathroom and all of a sudden something grabs me or pulls me or throws me. No, it was always with somebody. Now that I think about it, that's interesting. I never thought about that before. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was always with somebody. And yeah, it was very strange. But yeah, anyway, you'll love the book. It's great. I'll send you a copy, and it's going to be.
Where is the Unholy Silence available?
So
Is
it's
it
available. Yep,
Amazon?
it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google Books. It's available in Kindle, hardback, paperback, audiobook read in my own voice, right? You can pick it up there. It's
Oh, no.
available through Lulu in Europe and distributed throughout. In fact, most of my book sales, believe it or not, are European and based. So
Wow.
the European based, it's translated, I believe, into 40 languages. I saw the cover in Sweden, a little while ago, and Japan. I mean, it's a trip to see my cover in all these different languages has been translated. So through Lulu, but yeah, you can find my book anywhere. You can Google author.dogowen.com. I've got an IMDb page. I've got my website, my blog, my podcasts, and about 10 pages of Google. If you go and search my name, you'll just see it. It's all there. So, yeah, I've got 9 social media accounts. There should be no way that anybody can Google me without seeing where to grab a copy of this. So it's out there, it's readily available. And you can always go to author.dogowen.com and check it out from there.
Oh, fantastic. Author Doug Owen for the Unholy Silence. And
Absolutely.
there's pictures of proof of this stuff too in the book. I
Absolutely.
I can't wait to dig into this one.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fantastic.
You hear the voice of the audiobook, which now can't wait to hear because you do a good job not mumbling.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And the is about the closest I'll do. Or the filler word for me is, you know what I mean? If I say, you know, and my girlfriend will be like, okay, you're knowing me to death. Okay, stop it. I was like, okay. So, not through lack of practice, but eventually your brain realizes that you can do a dramatic pause. You don't have to fill every single silence with something nonstop because then you just sound like you're rambling. And
Yeah.
especially in radio, that dramatic pause makes a difference.
Oh,
Absolutely.
definitely.
And it gives your brain time to think, of the next
Yeah.
word. Yeah, it's great.
Well, God, this was a very haunting and ghostly episode. This is something different. I really enjoyed having you on.
Well, I enjoyed being here. I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great.
I cannot wait to read this book. I so the thing you're gonna send me, that's gonna also have the pictures in it.
Absolutely. Yep. I'll send you a PDF.
I can't
It'll
wait
op-
to get
Yep.
into it.
It's the copy I distributed through Lulu, so the international copy, which is the same as the same one on Amazon. Um, Maybe the cover's a little different. Maybe I changed the cover to kind of unify the Unholy brand. So all of the Unholy Silence, Unholy Podcast, Unholy Broadcast, all of those things have the similar logo to it too. So, but yeah, it's got all the goodies, man. All the stuff, all the chapters are there. Epilogue, prologues, all of the good stuff is right there where you need it to be. So it's a
Good.
quick read. Quick read. It's not long. It'll grab you and you'll be done with it in one afternoon easily. Yeah.
Excited.
Yeah, me too. It's great.
I I really enjoy having you on,
Yeah,
and
absolutely, man. I appreciate it for
I
sure.
can't wait to start listening to the Unholy podcast too.
Absolutely. The Unholy Podcast is great. Every Friday there's a new episode, and you can find the podcast on Spotify,
Oh
YouTube.
wow! Okay.
You can find it on the Unexplained Radio Network at 9 o'clock Central Time. I have a 2 hour block. It goes from the pre recorded podcast to then a live radio show that I do. But if you're in Europe, and for our friends around the world, the Paranormal UK radio network also broadcasts my podcast every Friday. And then the following week, they'll broadcast it 3 days a week, 3 times a day. So you really can't miss it over in Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Bless you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I could talk to you all day, but I say this is perfect. Let's wrap this up.
All right. Terrific.
Check out Doug Owens, The Unholy Silence. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble bookstores. You said Google.
Google everywhere. Yep. You can
Yeah.
find it on Google. You can find it everywhere.
And check out the Unholy Podcast. I know I will be. So thank you so much again.
Again, it's my pleasure, my man. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You made a great episode.
Terrific.
Thank you. I can't wait to have you on again. Okay.
Absolutely, brother. Listen, I'll send you that copy here pretty quick. And yeah, stay in touch, man.
Oh, definitely.
All right, brother. You take care of yourself, man. Time for us to go
you
smoke.
Oh, yeah.
All right, man. We'll see you.
Bye.
Thanks, man.